of our Divine Mother from the book Notes on the Way. This book, Notes on the Way, has a publisher's note. Between 1957 and 1973, the mother, our Divine Mother, spoke frequently with one of her disciples about the experiences she was having at the time. These conversations she called her agenda, a word that in French means diary or a notebook. Selected portions of these tape-recorded conversations were published in the Quarterly Bulletin of Sri Aurobindo International Center of Education between 1965 and 1973 under the titles Notes on the Way and A Propos. The French transcripts were read out to the mother for approval of publication, and occasionally she amended them. Page number 1, Notes on the Way, date 7th October 1964. Our Divine Mother says, things have clearly taken a turn for the better, not from the ordinary point of view, but from the higher. Yet the material consequences are still there. All the difficulties are as though aggravated. Only the power of the consciousness is greater, clearer, more precise, and also the action upon those who are of good will, they make quite considerable progress. But the material difficulties are as though aggravated. That is to say, it is to see what we can stand, to see if we can stand the test. It is like that. It isn't long since yesterday. Something has cleared in the atmosphere, but the way is still long, long, long. I feel it is very long. One must last, hold on. Above all, that is the impression. One must have endurance. These are the two absolutely indispensable things: endurance and a faith that nothing can shake, even an apparently complete negation, even if you suffer, even if you are miserable. I mean to say, in the body, even if you are tired, to last, to hold on and to last, to endure. That is it. But according to what I have been told, I mean by people who listen to the radio or the newspaper, all the things that I do not do, the whole world seems to be undergoing an action which for the moment is upsetting. It seems that the number of the apparently mad is increasing considerably. In the US, for example, the entire youth seems to have taken up with a sort of curious brainwave which would be disquieting for reasonable people, but which is certainly an indication that an unusual force is at work. It is the breaking up of all habits and rules. It is good. For the moment, it's rather strange, but it is necessary. Question: the true attitude at present, is it not to try to be as transparent as possible? For this, our Divine Mother says transparent, receptive to the new force. Question: I put the question to myself because the impression is that this transparency is transparent, but it is somewhat like nothingness, a nothingness that is full. All the same, it is nothingness. One doesn't know. One doesn't know if it is a kind of higher thamas or. For this, our Divine Mother says, above all, to be confident. The big difficulty in matter is that the material consciousness, that is to say, the mind in matter, has been formed under the pressure of difficulties, obstacles, struggles, and sufferings. It has been, so to say, worked out by these things and has left upon it a stamp almost of pessimism, defeatism, which is certainly the greatest obstacle. It is of this that I am conscious in my own work. The most material consciousness, the most material mind is accustomed to act, to make an effort to advance through whippings, otherwise it is tamas. And then, so far as it imagines always difficulty, always the obstacle or always the opposition that slows down the movement terribly. Very concrete, very tangible, and often repeated experiences are needed to convince it that behind all the difficulties there is grace, behind all the failures there is victory, behind all the pains, its sufferings, its contradictions, there is Ananda. Of all the efforts, it is this one which has to be repeated most often. All the while, you are obliged to stop or to remove, to convert a pessimism, a doubt, or an imagination altogether defeatist. I am speaking exclusively of the material consciousness. Our Divine Mother says, naturally, when something comes down from above, that makes well a crash like that. Mother makes a gesture of flattening, then all is silent, all stops and waits. But I understand well why the truth consciousness does not express itself more constantly, because the difference between its power and the power of the matter is so great that the power of matter is as it were annulled. But then that does not mean transformation, that means crushing. That is what they used to do in ancient times. They crushed all the material consciousness under the weight of a power against which nothing can struggle, nothing can oppose. And then one had the impression, there you are, it has been done. But it has not been done, not at all, for the rest down below remained as before without changing. Now it is being given the full possibility to change. Well, for that you must allow it to full play and not interpose a power that crushes it. This I understand very well, but this consciousness has the obstinacy of imbecile. How many times during a suffering, for example, when a suffering is there acute and one has the impression that it is going to become unbearable, there is the little inner movement within the cells of call. The cells send their SOS. Everything stops. The suffering disappears, and often now and more, it is replaced by a feeling of blissful well being. But this is the very first reaction of the imbecile material consciousness. We shall see how long that's going to last. And naturally, by this movement, it demolishes everything. One must begin all over again. I believe that, says our Divine Mother, I believe that for the effect to be lasting, not a miraculous effect that comes, dazzles and goes away, it must really be the effect of a transformation. One must be very, very patient. We have to deal with the consciousness very slowly, very heavy, very obstinate, which is not able to advance rapidly, which clings to what has appeared to it as truth. Even if it is quite a tiny truth, it clings to that and does not want to move. Then to cure that, one must have much more patience, much patience. The whole thing is to hold on, to endure. Sri Aurobindo has said this many times in many forms. Endure and you will conquer. Bear and bear, you will vanquish. Triumph comes to the most enduring. So then, that seems to be the lesson for the conglomerates. Here, Mother points to her body. Bodies appear to be simply as conglomerates, and so long as there is a will behind to keep them together, for some reason or other, they remain together. In the last few days, yesterday or the day before, there was this experience, a kind of consciousness wholly decentralized. I am always speaking of the physical consciousness, not of the higher consciousness. A decentralized consciousness which happened to be here, there, in this body, in that, what people call this person, that person. But this notion does not exist very much anymore. Then there was a kind of intervention of universal consciousness with regard to the cells, as though it asked those cells for what reason they wanted to keep this combination. If one can call it so, or that conglomerate, indeed, they were made to understand or feel the difficulties coming from the number of years, the wear and tear, the external difficulties, in some all the deterioration caused by the friction and usage. But that seemed to them quite unimportant. The answer was rather interesting in the sense that they did not seem to attach importance to anything other than the capacity to remain in conscious contact with a higher force. It is like an aspiration, not formulated in words, what is called in English a yearning, a longing for this contact with the divine force, the force of harmony, the force of truth, the force of love. It is because of that they appreciate the present combination. It's altogether another point of view. We will continue this tomorrow. These are the words of our Divine Mother.